Imagine this. It's 2046, I'm 43 years old, and I've just been elected as the President of the Philippines. My first executive order: make the Philippines a monolingual country. From now on, only Filipino and schools, media, businesses, public science, everywhere. English, out. Regional languages, out. One day, 99% of the Filipinos will speak only Filipino. And that sounds extreme, right? That's because here, bilingualism and multilingualism aren't just common. They're core to our identity, and with over 170 languages, it's part of who we are. But in Japan, that kind of linguistic uniformity is much closer to reality. Japan has about 15 to 20 regional languages, but standard Japanese, or what they call as Hyojungo, dominates. So this is based on Tokyo dialect, and it's used in schools, media, businesses, and government. And nearly 99% of Japanese people speak it. So even their writing system reinforces this unity. They have what they call the hiragana as the characters for native words. So these are those rounded characters. They also have katakana, which are used for foreign terms. So these are those angled characters. And then they have kanji for Chinese-derived characters. So this shows that even in their writing system, they have a way to discriminate what is native from what is foreign. So how did Japan become so linguistically unified, and at what cost? One answer comes from Elisa Vitali's research titled In the Role of Language in the Definition of National Character. So here, she examines Nihon Jinron. So this is an ideology rooted in the idea of Japan's cultural and linguistic uniqueness. So it promotes the belief that Japan has one language, one culture, and one people. And the people affected by this ideology are the ethnic Japanese, or the Yamato. So they are the center in this narrative. And others, for example, like the Ainu, the Ryukyans, Zainiki Koreans, and immigrants. So these people are pushed to the margins. So let's take a look at how this shows in their language policies and education. So Japan's policy supports the idea of Nihon Jinron in a way that they have the Kokugo policy. So the Kokugo policy enforces Japanese-only education. So in Japan, what they use as the means of teaching the children is the Hyojungo, or the standard Japanese. They also have language purity campaigns. So this regulates and discourages the use of loan words, or what they call as the gairaigo. They also have this National Institute for Japanese Language and Linguistics, or what they call the NINJAL, and this organization or institute conducts studies on the impact of loan words and their integration into Japanese. So this institute regulates the use of loan words. They also have the Agency for Cultural Affairs, or what they call the Bunkacho, and this agency issues guidelines encouraging the use of native Japanese words instead of gairaigo. So some Japanese media outlets and educational institutions also promote the use of traditional Japanese vocabulary over foreign origin words to maintain linguistic purity. And then there are also certain politicians and language purists that have voiced concern that too many loan words make Japanese harder to understand for older generation, and that is why they have the ninjal. So the ninjal regulates all of the gairaigo, or the loan words. So do you think that English is taught in Japan? Well, that only happened in 2020. In 2020, grades 5 to 6 have English as a formal subject and has it as a part of their national curriculum. But again, that only happened in 2020. So they made a national curriculum revision to integrate English in their curriculum. So they also study it more intensively in junior high, but only focusing on rote memorization, because again, not everyone or not majority of Japanese uses English. And then how do we see this ideology, the Nihon Jinron, in action? So it spreads through media and pop culture. So this media and pop culture glorify their uniqueness, the one Japan, one culture, one people ideology. They also have the education, as mentioned, the Kokugo policy, which enforces Japanese-only instruction, even in diverse classrooms. And the addition of English is just for formality, because again, they only focus on rote memorization. There's no practical application, since the people there do not speak the language. So there are no exposures. They also have this symbolic recognition of other languages, like the Ainu Language Act. This shows that there are policy that helps preserve other languages except the standard Japanese, but it still separates Ainu language from the mainstream, and it's merely just a policy because there's no programs or campaigns that supports it. And this is what Elisa Vitali calls as an invisible curriculum. So even though Nihon Jinron is not really a language policy or a program, it shows that language isn't just taught, but it teaches the people there how to be Japanese. So to be Japanese is to use pure language, not loan words. So now let's shift from theory to a real consequence. So the theory is a Nihon Jinron, and then I search for a consequence that is observable, and that is what happened to the Yeyeman language. So in Madoka Hamin's study, the title is Educated Not to Speak Our Language. She explains how monolingual Japanese education has erased indigenous language like Yeyeman. So Yeyeman is not a dialect, it's a language. It has its own grammar and vocabulary that is distinct from Japanese, especially from standard Japanese or Yojungo. So still, it's treated officially as a dialect, diminishing its value. We also have, or Hamin also mentioned symbolic domination by Boredu. So how they explained it, they said that many locals see their language as ugly and associate Japanese with success and sophistication. So for success and sophistication, they would use Yojungo, but their own language, the Yeyeman, is ugly. And they also have this internalized belief system that stops both old and young from valuing Yeyeman. So some locals believe that speaking Japanese makes one beautiful or educated, while Yeyeman is seen as backward. So this was actually exactly the words that were mentioned in Madoka Hamin's study. So what Madoka Hamin did was interview locals, and then these are the responses of those locals. So one local said that if you want to speak to a beautiful Japanese, you will use the Japanese language, or the Yojungo. It is also found out in that study that social mobility and language loss is very evident. So higher education is often associated with standard Japanese. It's what is presented in the media, in their education policies, and then they also have this findings that those who stay in Miyara are more likely to speak Yeyeman but are viewed as less educated. So there is this prejudice about the language that is a hindrance to the preservation of it. And then there are efforts to revitalize the language or to buhayin the language, but the challenges are deep. So first, there is a generational divide. So new speakers feel anxious about using it incorrectly, and traditional speakers or the older fluent speakers often discourage learners, unintentionally gatekeeping their heritage. There is also a lack of formal education because, again, they have the Kohogo policy, which means that schools prioritize Japanese, leaving little room for indigenous language. And then this shows that the education, the language policy, reinforces the language ga. And the Kokugo curriculum leaves no space for minority languages. There is also this another challenge that Mimen mentioned, the teacher circulation. So here or in Japan, they have their teachers rotate every 4 to 5 years. That's very different from our system here in the Philippines, because in Japan, again, teachers rotate every 4 to 5 years. So this means that most are from Miyara and don't speak Miyaran. And so if they don't speak Miyaran, how can they teach the Miyaran or the Yayaman language? So those who want to teach Yayaman can stay long enough to make lasting impact, because again, they have to rotate every 4 to 5 years. And then the result of all these challenges, a broken cycle where fewer and fewer people speak Yayaman, teach or value Yayaman. So that's very hard to imagine, but not all is lost. There are also grassroots efforts like the Miyara Women's Association who show powerful resistance. They voluntarily teach Yayaman in schools, so they try to bring the language back into daily life. Since 2007, they've taught Yayaman in schools, and then they created books, ran language lessons, and emphasized that language starts from mothers. But again, the self-orientalism, as what the writer called it, remains a barrier. So when speakers internalize the belief that their own language is less valuable, revival becomes harder. Yet Hamin's title says it all. Educated not to speak our language, the system itself teaches people to abandon their linguistic roots. And it shows in the language policies, in the media representation, in the government efforts that somehow the country has abandoned their linguistic roots, especially those that are not standard Japanese. And until multilingualism is embraced in Japan at the national level, Japan will continue to be a place where people are tragically educated not to speak their language. So to close, Japan has mastered the art of building national identity through language, so they are known for that. But as the Yayaman case shows, this comes at a cost. So the silencing of difference. Yayaman isn't just a language, it's a culture on its own, a history, a way of seeing the world, and a medium for the people inside Japan. And when it's lost, a whole worldview disappears with it. So as we admire Japan's unity, let's also ask, what voices have been left out? And more importantly, how can we protect them before they're gone? I am Hannah Rose Diwanites, and this is my case study.